Life Happens, Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm comedian Tracy DeGraff.
And I'm Catherine, co-host and bestie.
Well, good afternoon, Catherine.
Good afternoon.
We're trying to perk up because...
Yeah, I'm trying.
Well, we'll just be honest with ourselves and with our faithful followers that life is just hard right now. Mm-hmm. And we're getting through it one day at a time, almost 1 minute at a time sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, and we're going to give this a try, episode 172, because we don't want to not have an episode for our listeners, because we do try to put one out every week, and we just haven't been able to get a stack of them in the queue, if you will.
No, it's been really challenging lately.
Yeah. I mean, we were pretty good there for a while where we had them all stacked up and we're like, oh man, look at us. We're cooking with gas, you know? Mm-hmm. But so today because of that, that's why we chose this particular topic. Today we are doing a documentary, which we have done many times before, but we were kind of behind the eight ball yesterday and we said, what are we going to do for the podcast? And we looked at our list of topic ideas that we have. By the way, if you have topic ideas for us, please contact us and let us know what they are. Excuse me, my voice cracked. Because we get great inspiration from our audience.
Yeah, Angie gave me one this morning, by the way.
She did?
Yeah,
What'd
she
say?
said that she'd be interested in hearing, even though they know where they're moving in retirement, all the different retirement communities in the U.S.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Good things about them and things like that.
You know what I'm picturing right now is our friend Angie and her mom Joan, both who listen. Joan probably listens more faithfully than Angie does, to be honest. Hi, Joan, in Florida. But
Angie's there now.
I know, because I saw on the exercise thread, because we have a group of us that go and exercise on Wednesdays, and Angie's in the group. Well, she sent a picture from Florida of the pool. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I
was pining after it.
I know, because we've been there.
Yeah.
We've been to Florida to Angie's mom's, and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So good idea. All right, put that on the list. We're going to do an episode about retirement places, places that you can retire.
Yeah. But
today, we're doing this episode on the documentary called Dear Zachary, A Letter to a Son About His Father. Okay.
Yes.
And we chose this yesterday, and the sole reason that we chose it is because it was
an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. And it said it was a true crime. And we took a look at it at the trailer or whatever, and we're like, okay, that sounds good. Let's just do it. Mm-hmm. And then I watched the film last night, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, you then texted me and you said it's not what I thought.
Not at all.
And I would agree once I saw it too.
Yeah,
it was.
So before we even get started, I have to say, if you don't like spoiler alerts, then don't listen.
Best not listen.
Go watch Dear Zachary, A Letter to a Son About His Father. It's on Netflix, and you can probably get it on
Prime.
some other... Oh, right. Never mind. It's on Amazon Prime. But you might be able to get it on Netflix for a fee, or I don't know if they carry it there. But anyway, watch it if you don't want us to tell you what it's about. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't tell you, we won't have anything to say. Yeah.
Well, we can't really do this without saying the end.
Right. That's how I feel about it. So spoiler alert, you're going to hear all about it. So that's going to be your first takeaway is we're going to do a review of this documentary. The second takeaway from today's podcast is we're going to talk a little bit about the value of one person's life. Because that's really what they go into on the documentary, which sort of shocked us, was it wasn't really about the crime so much. It was about the person, the victim.
Yeah. It was definitely more about the victim, the dad, which is also the son of the parents that are interviewed, and the nut bag involved.
Right. Speaking of nut bags, the third takeaway, we thought we would talk a little bit about rejection because that was really the motive or the fuel that kind of got this thing going. It was her rejection. We have a little scripture as always, so stay tuned to the end because we do have some relevant scripture to share and a little call to action. Before we get into it, Catherine, if somebody's listening for the first time, tell them about how they can become a sponsor of the program.
Well, you can look at your bank account.
Yeah, get some money.
Or don't look.
Yeah, don't look. Just do it.
Yeah. And go to Patreon and go to Life Happens Life Anyway. And then you'll see the prompts to be able to donate your $100 a month. You could do that very easily.
It's actually
just kidding.
It's Life Happens Laugh Anyway.
What did I say?
You said Life Happens Life Anyway.
Oh, I don't feel like laughing.
That's okay.
That's why.
See, that made you laugh. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
It is.
Oh, God. Okay. Also, you can go to tracydegraff.com and then you can look for the little prompt there too, and you can donate all your money there.
Yeah, and we only ask for $5 a month. Yeah. That's our typical donation, but if you want to do more, we very gladly accept, or you can even do less if you want. You can do your own amount.
Yeah.
So thank you to all of our sponsors. We love you and appreciate you.
Yes, we do.
And, this podcast does cost us money to create and produce and all of that. And so we just appreciate that we have listeners that are, chipping in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Dear Zachary, a letter to a son about his father. I mean, just tell me just give me like your synopsis of this story.
This was made by, I don't know if we said this already, it was produced and created by this victim's best friend, his childhood best friend. And it was years of interviews. I wonder if our listeners can hear the knocking. Muffin is working in the room next to us.
Yeah.
And he's doing some hammering or something.
Yeah, he is. He's in and out of the crawl space, and then he comes up into the room next to us. He's converting our half bath into a pantry.
Mm-hmm. And he's knocking.
And he's been in there all day, like up and down out of the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So I just had to explain what that was. Like I said, so what his friend wanted to do was honor his friend, which I hope you do that for me if anything ever happens to me. Wow. What a tribute to his friend.
Yeah, that's what I hate about tributes is the guy who's dead. Man. He's gone.
Well.
And now all these people come out of the woodwork and say how great he is. Like, where were you when he was alive?
Anyway, so it was like this tribute to his friend, but in honor of his friend's son that the friend never got to know because he was killed before the baby was born.
Right.
Zachary.
Right.
That's what it was about.
Yeah, and it goes into the life of Andrew. Andrew is the victim in this crime and story. And so it goes into his life, which is quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Andrew was an only child, no siblings, came into the life of his parents whose names were David and Kate. And I believe Kate was from Great Britain.
She was from England.
Yeah, because when I was watching it, I could kind of pick up on the accent a little bit.
Yeah, and it sounded like her accent sounded very much like where my mom is from, because England has all different accents.
Yeah.
But it sounded like Nottingham, but I could be wrong, but it sounded like that area.
Yeah. So they go into, in the story, when they give all the background of Andrew, they go into the story of his parents and how they met. And then they thought they would, have a baby right away, but they couldn't get pregnant right away. And so they went to all this trouble to, have a baby. And then Andrew came along and he was just like their shining star, you know. And Andrew, they interviewed a lot of his schoolmates and classmates and they all said like he lit up a room and he was just sort of like the life of the party. He was full of life.
Right. And even later in life, well, not much later because he didn't live that much later, but when he went to college and then his classmates from college and then his colleagues once he became a doctor. And there were a lot of doctors that thought the best of him as well.
They did.
Yeah.
I'm looking at pictures as we're talking. I pulled up images of Andrew Bagby is his last name, and I'm looking at images of him, and his smile is just contagious, you know? And he's got like deep dimples and a full face.
Yeah.
And he kind of reminds me of Jack Black in a way. Like his
I kind
look.
of thought that too a little bit.
And he's silly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he started out in his medical career as a surgeon, but then he switched to family practice because he loved people.
Exactly.
He's a real people person guy.
Yeah, surgeons kind of go in, they do their thing, and then they, you don't really see them too much after that.
Right. Thankfully, their patients are unconscious when they're cutting them open.
Right, exactly.
But he liked to solve the puzzle. They said that, like, when he would get a case of somebody who's sick, he would like to just talk to them, and he looked at it kind of like a challenge, like this is a puzzle that needs to be solved. He was also an Eagle Scout as a young man.
Yes. Yep.
So you can see, I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to, I'm so distracted by the pounding, but anyway, he was, just so you know too, if you do watch this documentary, there's a lot of swearing in the beginning because as a youth, he and his friend, what was the friend's name again? Kurt, that's right. They would make films together and they would do some acting, and there was swearing, they're young boys. And so there is some swearing in the beginning. Just a little bit of an alert there. But it goes into then how he grows up. He becomes this doctor and he meets his fiance. So he was engaged before, but she broke up with him. He was devastated. He didn't think that he could do much better than this girlfriend that he found when he moved away
to Pennsylvania.
Was it Pennsylvania? Or I thought it was... When did he end up in Newfoundland or Canada?
Well, he was never in Canada.
Well, why did the grandparents go there?
Because she fled to Canada. She went to Canada.
Oh, okay.
The criminal, the murder person.
Oh, okay.
The murderer.
I see.
She left and went up there.
That's where she went. Okay.
But they met in that little town, that little quaint town. I forgot the name of it.
It started with an L.
Yeah, it was like Luby or something. I don't know. It was Pennsylvania something.
Yeah.
So he meets this woman, and she's also a doctor, and her name is Shirley. Okay, so Dr. Shirley, she's 13 years older than Andrew.
Yeah.
And
was it only 13?
Well, that's what I read. So,
yeah.
13 years older than Andrew, and she had 3 kids.
Yeah.
She had 3 kids, and I think she had a couple divorces. I mean, she had a whole bunch of bags, a lot of baggage that she was trailing behind. Mm-hmm. And as Catherine pointed out, one of his friends was interviewed on this documentary, and the friend had said that Andrew said, this is the best I could do, because the friend was like, hey, you don't have to put up with this.
Yeah, there were a lot of red flags.
Yeah. And he was kind of like, yeah, I do. I mean, this is the best I can do. Well, anyway, Shirley finally pushes Andrew to his limits because she's legit nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And
smothering, controlling.
Oh, just the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she pushes him so far that he breaks up with her. Now he's done with her. And he breaks it off with her, but she will not leave him alone. Mm-hmm. And this is behavior that we see come up again after this relationship. And I think that she probably did it before, too, before Andrew. I'm sure that she was not like an angelic girlfriend/wife to these other guys.
Probably not.
I'm sure not.
Yeah, he breaks up with her and he puts her on an airplane and sends her 1,300 miles away back to her homeland or whatever. And then how much later? I don't
the next day she got in her car.
Was it next day? Oh my God.
Well, it was very quick.
Yeah.
So he breaks up with her. He puts her on a plane. She's gone. Mm-hmm. The next day or the day after that or whatever, really quick, she's back.
At his door.
Demanding to get back together. And she's in some sort of goofy dress with some flowers or something like that.
Yeah. Somehow he communicated this to one of his colleagues and friend and neighbor, too. This other friend he lived like a block away. And the friend had strongly advised him, right. You broke up. She is not accepting this rejection, basically, is what he meant.
Right.
And she wants to meet you now. It was like 5:30 in the morning or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And wanted to meet him at some park. And the friend said, "Don't do it. This is not good. She's nuts. Nobody does that. You don't break up with somebody and be sent on a plane and then show up at their door, first of all."
Yeah, and I did look it up. It says that he was in Pennsylvania, and then she was living in Iowa at the time. So she was back in Iowa, got in a car.
Yeah, that's right.
Drove 1,000 miles, and then was back at his door in Pennsylvania. And the friend said, "If I were you, I would call the police and get as far away from her as you can."
Yes, he did. Yeah. Right.
Well, as you know, because he's dead, he's the victim, she killed him. Yep. She shot him bunches of times.
Yeah, I think like 5 times in his butt, his head, the chest.
Yeah. Just in the park.
Yeah. And
it's terrible.
No, and you see the parents, so which would be the grandparents. So it's Kate and David?
Yeah, David. Mm-hmm.
And she can't even speak. She's crying so hard. And the grief is just hard to watch.
It is.
Because it's all these years later. And I mean, you just never.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And this film actually came out in 2008. Mm-hmm. So this was all transpiring, whatever it was, early 2000s. Yeah. I can't remember exactly. 2002, it says.
Yeah, it was just hard to watch. And they described like how the shock that they were in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, of course, they know who it is. The one colleague, the friend that warned Andrew not to go there, he tells the police, "You know what? Look at this. Look at Shirley. That's who did this. I can tell you that right now."
Right.
I mean, so then it's just hard to believe that the so-called justice system doesn't work. It's not justifiable. What they do sometimes,
right?
Because the law was not in their favor at all. At what point did she go to Canada then?
Well, as soon as she learned that she was a suspect in this case, she fled to St. John's, Newfoundland in Canada.
Yeah, and you do hear this man that put the documentary together. Boy, did he do his digging. I mean, he got the tapes from the police. He got the actual phone calls.
Yeah.
Communication between the parents and the grandparents and her. At some point, there's this woman judge, and I love that the grandparents name the people who dropped the ball, and they name the judge.
Gail Welsh was her name.
Yes, and she set bail, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but she basically said that Shirley was not a threat because she specifically went after a specified person, which what that insinuates is that, she's not going to kill anymore because she got the one she was mad at.
Yeah.
So
she's not nuts. She's specific.
Yeah.
She's not a random criminal.
Also, too, this was not, in the heat of the moment killing. It was premeditated.
She had 1,000 miles to think about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. With the gun and...
just before we go further into this point where she flees to Canada, before all of that, in the film, they really go through methodically a lot of the friendships that Andrew built over his life.
Yeah.
And
family. Yep.
Cousins. He didn't have brothers, but they showed all of these guys saying that he would be my best man. He was my best man,
mm-hmm.
And they had a film of him doing the best man speech at somebody's wedding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it broke my heart to watch that.
And I was amazed. This filmmaker and friend, he even went to England where his friend's family, other side of his family was. So that would have been on his mother's side. I was so touched by that. That's quite the endeavor to dig, to not only do, just get over there, but to do the digging over there and interview family over there. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking about, gosh, I have family over there and family here. And it is crazy how you can have relationships. No, Tracy's laughing because I think she's thinking what I said earlier. No, but I'm just saying how you can really be close to people who, family who are overseas And he was also close to his American relatives.
Yeah.
Here, he's just so close to so many people. And I just thought that was really neat how he touched so many lives.
The filmmaker deserves all the respect because this was from the heart. Yeah. This story was told from the heart. And I don't know, how do I want to say this? What I expected out of this, because I knew it was a true crime documentary, I expected the typical, here's the murder, this is what it looked like, this was the crime scene, here are the detectives, where most of it is talking about the murderer and what the murderer did and how they caught the person, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, like the location and the motive and the blah, blah, blah. But they don't always go in depth about the victim and the impact that this loss has had on that person's world.
Right.
And that to me was so spectacular. It was so done so well in this film.
Yeah, it definitely separates itself from other documentaries for sure. And like I said, it was a tribute to his friend from that perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was honoring the baby, which we'll get to. And in the end, very much honoring Andrew's parents and the strength and the type of character that they had.
Yeah.
So it was really extremely moving.
Yeah. And I think that if you had to choose heroes, the grandparents are the heroes of this story.
Absolutely.
Kate and David Bagby are the heroes of this story. Yeah, for sure.
Hands down.
Okay, let's go into the value of a person's life. You know, since we were just talking about the moving testimony of it. I mean, you watch these, I don't know how many interviews he did, maybe a dozen or more, but you watch them talk about him, and as the memories come in, the tears follow.
Yeah.
And so many of them were just breaking up over, they almost just couldn't believe, you know, that this person was gone. And I mean, we've experienced that because we've lost people, you know. I've lost both of my parents. You've lost your dad. You're in the middle of this long goodbye with your mom, which is just devastating. But, you know, if you had to describe the value of a life, I mean, how would you describe it, Catherine?
Invaluable.
Yeah.
You can't put a value or a price on somebody's life. He was intimately involved in a lot of people's lives. And a lot of people thought so highly of him. Of course, I'm sure he was no saint, but nonetheless, he just was liked by many.
You know, I would venture to say that I'm sure Andrew was a very hard worker because you don't become an Eagle Scout by sitting on the couch. You don't become a doctor, you know, by scrolling through your phone and just, you know, looking at random videos on TikTok.
Yeah.
You know,
gaming.
So, I mean, I didn't know him and they didn't say these things, but I'm just guessing from the story that they told that he was loving, caring, genuine, the real deal. You know, I got that impression.
Yeah.
And a couple of them said he wasn't a saint, but he was, you know. They said he was on time.
Yes, I know. I knew you were going to point that out.
Right, right.
And then he was late to work that day. So
okay,
he knew.
True confession.
Oh my gosh.
Do you hear that?
Do I hear that?
It reminds me of Elf when he when he burps really loud and he's like, did you hear that? True confession about being late. This afternoon, a bunch of us were having lunch at the church. And we invited Catherine, and she wasn't there at noon because the food was there. And I had texted her, I was hungry. And our one friend was like, well, we can wait. And I go, okay. and I can see Catherine on the 360, the Life 360, because we share a thing. And I'm like, she's not moving yet. She's not in the car.
Oh, I have to take this.
Oh, that's fine. Go ahead. Was that Dee from the
agency?
Okay, she sounds like she's great.
Yeah, that's who helped us move yesterday. That's who was with her yesterday.
Okay.
What do you say? I mean, what do you do?
I think you handled it well. I mean, I couldn't hear what your mom was saying, but
it was jumbled anyway.
Yeah.
And so the gist of it is she knows she's not home.
Right.
and she's mad that I'm not there.
Yeah. But Dee said that she had a good day, an excellent day, other than whatever's happening now. Mm-hmm. And I kind of heard her say something like, I know what triggers her or something.
Yeah, she said that she tries to tell, like, the staff, like, don't do that. That's going to trigger her.
Yeah.
But they do it anyway is what I got out of it. And once they get acclimated and figure out what the triggers are, then she's telling me that it should be okay.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, she's real young, but she's really good with picking up on cues.
Yeah.
And I watched her with my mom yesterday, and she seemed like a very quick learner. I mean, she definitely. That's great. And she was assuring me.
Yeah.
I mean, she was saying all kinds of good things, but
yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. It's just so hard.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's gonna work out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll probably edit that out.
That's fine.
Because it's kind of long.
That's fine either way. Whatever you feel. I forgot what we were talking about right before the phone.
The character.
I know what it was. We were talking about the value. And how he was a Eagle Scout and a doctor, and so he had great connections around him.
Yeah, and he had to have, like, we were kind of touching on the fact that, I mean, he couldn't have been a sloth.
Right.
He probably had good discipline in terms, I mean, you don't become a doctor just, like we said, playing video games or, right. all the time. And,
and they mentioned that people would request him after only seeing him one time.
Oh, that's right.
They would come back to the clinic and say, I want to see, that Dr. Bagby or whatever his name is.
And they also, the documentary showed him even as a young man or maybe even a teenager, just being caring with, I don't know, there were like little kids in the picture, and he would like hold them and things like that. So through and through caring.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about our third takeaway was we were going to talk about rejection, and that brings us to Shirley. Let's talk about Shirley.
Shirley.
Yeah.
So she's definitely sick. I do not know how she became a doctor, because I thought she was still going to school while they were together. But either way, she was a doctor for sure. And how does... So I have a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that someone can go through that education, go through that discipline, get their doctorate degree, function in society, sort of, not really, and also have the mindset the way she did. I mean, this woman could not take rejection. After she murdered Andrew, she had some other boyfriend who broke up with her. She called this man 200 times. Now, I don't recall the time span, but I think it was like in one night or one night and day or something like that, and threatened to kill him. And by the way, we mentioned earlier that this judge had let her go. Also, the bail that she had, her psychiatrist posted $63,000 or $65,000 bond, or he came up with that money for her. Later we find out that he also is indicted, and
well, I think it's clear that he is a poor judge of character.
Well, yeah,
because he's supposed to be meeting with her
to fix her.
Yeah. I'll bet you she did some other things for him. I'll bet you she did, because it seems like she used her like womanly whatevers.
Yeah, there's video of her all over Andrew.
Yeah.
And
that psychiatrist looked like he had, maybe been lonely. I don't know. Like he didn't look like, I don't want to.
So rejection is the like what catapults her into this frenzy. Also, when she goes to Canada, at some point they find out she's pregnant.
Yes.
And during court she's pregnant, but she's free. I forget the details because really I have a lot going on. I'm just going to say I just had so much going on right now, as you may have heard in the I'm not sure if we're going to edit the whole thing out or not, but I'm just getting a lot of phone calls during this thing. Right. But anyway, she has the baby. Now, the grandparents, Andrew's parents, are of course concerned, and they go to the authorities and they say this woman is a suspected murderer
right.
of our son, and now she's having a baby. We do not believe that she will be in the best interest of this child. And it just goes on. The justice system, if you even want to call it that, really fails them. They agree to come to some... So the mom, Shirley, makes it very difficult for them to see the baby. But then I think she's backed up in a corner, and she almost doesn't have any other choice because she is in jail at some point, right?
Well, before she went to jail, the grandparents, David and Kate, sold their stuff.
Yes, that's right.
So they were living in the United States. They sold their stuff and they moved to Canada.
Yeah.
To be near where all of this was happening because they were going after custody of their grandchild.
Right.
And they were going to fight for custody. Well, it took a while for her to get, because she had the bail thing going, she was out.
Yeah.
So then they had like supervised visits where they had to go and be searched and patted down, and they would be in a room and the nutso crazy murderer mom would be right next to them.
Yes.
In another room.
Yes. And at some point, she's not only in those kinds of conditions. I mean, they're out. I don't know where they are, but there's pictures of them by pools and a playpen by someone's home.
Yeah.
These, by the way, where they go, is it Newfoundland?
Yeah.
Where they are?
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely cold. The weather's horrible. And the grandparents, Kate and David, they drive at least 2 hours very frequently in this bad weather to see that baby.
Yeah.
I don't know how to segue into the next part.
Well, before we get to that, I do want to say that eventually Shirley, the nut job, she does end up in jail, and the parents they have like temporary custody of the baby, and the baby bonded with Kate really well. I mean,
she said from the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kate was just a real nurturing grandma, and I'm sure that she and her husband were so devastated at the loss of their son Andrew that they thought, like, they confessed on this documentary that their plan was to do like to kill themselves.
Yeah,
you know, that's how distraught they were over their son's murder.
Mm-hmm.
But they obviously didn't do that, and once they, saw that she was responsible and she was pregnant, then they had, something to live for. Mm-hmm. They wanted to live for this child and to get justice for their son. Well, the judge let this murderer out because she was a specific murderer, not a random murderer. Right. And so she should be out, Mm-hmm. And her nut job doctor, her psychiatrist said, yeah, here's some money. You should let her out. I think that's what I would do. Well, while she was out, tell them what happened.
She took the baby. She gave the baby Ativan. Yeah, it was Ativan. Mm-hmm. Gave the baby some, gave herself some, put the baby under her sweater or something like that, attached the baby to her, and jumped into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they both died.
Right.
That was... It felt like a gut punch when I saw that.
And they described how they found little Zachary, the baby.
And they even mentioned in the documentary that perhaps Shirley was upset because Zachary was more connected to Kate.
Then they have a recording of her saying, I don't know what you're saying about me to Zachary. Why is he going to you more? Well, they pointed out that Kate's nurturing and that Shirley's so-called love was false, and the baby knew it.
Yeah.
And it was all for show.
So that rejection
yes,
of her baby may have been the trigger to put her over the edge to literally go into the ocean and kill herself.
Also, by the way, too, the judge had said there's no evidence that she's a threat to anybody else, yet all this time, there were like 8 other restraining orders against her.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, the massive amounts of phone calls that she would make when someone would break up with her, like the obsessed behavior. Right. That wasn't a red flag.
It should have been.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been a red flag. And so in this case, at the end, the end of it, you could definitely say justice was not served. It was a gross miscarriage of justice because not only do you have the victim, Andrew, but then you have the victim, Zachary. And Kate and David were victimized twice.
Yes.
And that is just unbelievable to me. And then what Kate and David did after that, because you could see, especially in David, when he was there with his wife and she was sobbing uncontrollably on this documentary, just sobbing, trying to be interviewed, and the emotions were just spilling out.
Right.
And that David got so mad.
Yeah, his emotions were coming out too.
Yeah.
And he did seem like a reasonable man, but of course, the anger toward the justice system, toward Shirley. I love that he also explained they had no other choice. They had to follow what the government guidelines gave them, because he said, well, if we killed her, which we wanted to do, then there'd be consequences that way. He said we couldn't go back home to California, and he gave those reasons. We couldn't do this, this, and this, because none of those would have worked. The way they saw it, they had to meet with her to see the baby and to make sure that this baby was going to be okay.
Oh, that would just be awful.
Yeah, and to follow the law.
Terrible. And then they fought for a change in the law in Canada. And they were successful to a certain degree in terms of the bail. And I think that it's just crazy that violent criminals can get out. Like, don't you think we should really look and find out if they committed this crime? And if they did, don't you think we should leave them, like, contained?
Yeah, right.
Don't give them an ankle bracelet and let them out. Or just don't say, you're not going to do anything, right?
Yeah.
That's what the judge basically did.
Absolutely.
The judge gave her, like, a verbal little lashing and said, now you're going to behave, right?
Yeah, literally, she did that, the judge.
Do you know what I thought was...
You're not going to do this again, right?
Right. I thought it was hilarious when the filmmaker made the mouth move really fast.
I was gonna say that too. He did that for the judge and also for somebody else. That it was a cockamamie response, and he does some camera work with the lips and just basically.
It was. I thought the film was just so well done.
It was
in so many ways, like
really
the
was.
music and the build up and the twist,
the editing,
everything.
Yeah, the going from person to it was just really well put together for sure. Yeah, this bail reform that the grandparents pushed for is really something, and I bet you we need it here too.
Well, yeah, you need it everywhere on this whole planet, because guess what? If Shirley was in jail, she wouldn't have killed Zachary. The responsibility for Zachary's life falls directly on the legal system.
That's right.
The justice system.
That's right.
They failed that baby, and they failed those grandparents, and they failed Andrew.
Yeah.
Because if she was locked up, she wouldn't have been able to kill their baby, and she wouldn't have been able to kill herself.
Yeah.
And then she would have paid the price for this crime.
Right.
So it's very sad.
It's very upsetting.
It is.
Very disturbing. But nonetheless, if you're curious, I would say watch it. Because it's not like other documentaries. It was captivating and interesting, I hate to say. I mean, somebody else's tragedy. But you know that the family approved of this. So I
thought it was beautiful for Andrew. It really was.
Yes, and Zachary. And
yes.
Yeah, and the parents, the grandparents. It was a tribute to them, too, because that was kind of like, no, it was going to be a tribute to them at the end. And it was. Right. And they were... Because of their character.
They weren't expecting this. This came to them. Their lives were... I don't recall if they said what they were doing in life before they found out that their son had been killed,
I think the dad was an engineer and she was a nurse.
But were they still working, or were they retired, or... Because they were a little bit older... So I don't know. What I'm getting at is, on a dime, their whole life changed.
Yeah.
In one phone call.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
And she described too, like what it was like when they went down to identify the body of Andrew and the body of their grandson. Yeah. And that was gut-wrenching.
Yes, it was.
Well, it's time for some hope. We must share some scripture. And Catherine picked out this verse, Revelation 21, verse 4. And it says, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." So I hope that that's encouraging. I hope so too. These things, we may say there was no justice in this case, and there wasn't. There was not justice in this case, but justice is always served at some point. Mm-hmm. And there will be peace. And I do pray that David and Kate have peace to this day. I don't know what they're doing now. I mean, this was filmed in 2008, so that's a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're doing now, but I do pray that they have peace and that the memories of their son give them joy.
Yeah.
Because he seemed like they both seemed like, real joyful.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Life Happens Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm still comedian Tracy DeGraff.
I'm still Catherine. Did we say your call to action?
No, we didn't. Tell him. Do you remember it?
I don't.
I'll tell him. Hold on. The call to action is if you suspect someone is on the edge, take caution. Because we were thinking about the one friend who said to him, "No, don't meet her. Mm-hmm. Don't do it. Yeah. She's nuts. You put her on a plane." And she got back in her car and drove 1,000 miles. That's a sign of crazy.
Right.
All right. So if you suspect, don't do it.
Yeah. All right. Now we're signing off.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.